Ogni volta che si sono, l'esperienza insegna dei programmi definiti, sempre numerosi che sì, ogni volta che si verificano,
Hey Rob,
ogni volta inconvenienti, l'esperienza insegna
this
che
is
ogni volta che tendono a dei
my
programmi,
entry
si verificano ogni volta
to
che si sono,
Mr.
l'esperienza
Sounds
insegna dei
Strange
programmi
Rob
definiti, sempre numerosi
contest,
che sì, ogni volta
500
che si
subscribers
verificano,
contest.
ogni volta inconvenienti,
And that's a good one.
l'esperienza insegna
Finally, a
che ogni
real
volta che
contest.
tendono a dei programmi, si verificano ogni
I must say, uh, yeah, this is my first reply to the contest, but just for some context, it was a bit interesting because Rob asked a bunch of questions in a very specific order, and I had to get to the very last question, the very last part of the last question to start figuring out how I would reply, how I would answer the questions, the previous questions. So here I am after having been in the marches, picking up cranberries. This is what we do in the season here in Sweden. But of course we also listen to sound poetry. As the first question was about, Rob was asking us to show a record of literary value, relevance. So here you go. Futura, Poesia Sonoria, critical historical anthology of sound poetry, edited by Arrigo Loral Totino from Cramps Records. 7 LPs of some of the best of sound poetry. As you can hear, sound poetry can be different things, but usually it involves the text being recited, cut up, altered, dubbed, whatever. It is in the spectrum of avant-garde, of course, but some of it is actually pretty pleasant. I really like this this one from this is an Italian artist, and yeah, these are collaborations between Sergio Sena and Arrigo Loro Totino and Roberto Musto, Laura Santiano. This is stuff you don't listen to every day, but it's very stimulating, and I guess that's the whole point of the kind of music that a lot of us are listening to, is a way to never get old, to always aspire for the unexpected, a sort of challenge that will make you grow, so that you don't just always go back to your teen darlings, musical teen darlings. Not that there's anything wrong with that, like every day we only got 24 hours, of which we only, yeah, you know the deal. The second question was about showing a record of artistic, like pictorial art value.
The tragedy of the world belongs to nobody. It is like the wind, with its own dreams.
Karel Appel, musique barbare.
We go through it,
The
we die of it.
initiator of the Cobra movement,
So,
the art movement called Cobra. He's from the Netherlands, and this is his sole record. Very striking cover. Inside you get like beautiful pictures of how it was done at the Dutch, the Netherlands national radio station with tape recorders, and yeah, there's great pictures of Karel Appel. This one is amazing. It's a record that is It's absolutely fantastic. It's a great addition. I believe it's got reissued recently, but this is really one of my favorite avant-garde tape collage records, and it is basically Karel Appel trying to do sonically what he was doing on the canvas, and and I love it. Now what next? I think that next Rob asked us for a record of historical relevance, value, whatever, and was pretty much the first one that came to mind. Frederick Reski, Attica, Coming Together, featuring Carl Berger, Alvin Curran, John Gibson, Garrett List, Richard Youngstein, and Steve Ben Israel singing, a great actor, theater. The lineup of this is just insane. So of course this is about the September 1971 revolt at the Attica prison, where over 40 inmates got killed by the guards. And they were all black, Afro-American. The governor ordered the guards to shoot the protesters, the revolters. It wasn't a violent revolt, but this is just one of the most beautiful records I have, I believe. The text of this is from one of the leaders of the revolt who survived and was released in 1972. And when he was asked by a journalist when he left Attica how he felt, the text being sung by Steve Ben Israel is what he replied. This was, by the way, recorded just a few days after the events, after Richard X. Clark, the inmate who got released, made this statement. Chilling. Now Rob asked us for a record not sung in English. Being French and living in Sweden, that was not the most difficult part of the whole contest for me, but of course you're not gonna go the easy way. And yeah, of course you could use some ethnographical recordings from Okora, which Rob is very fond of, like stuff. What could it be? Yeah. We could have chosen something like this. Something from Asia, something from Romania, but I'll stick with something that a musical genre that is really dear to me, that is mostly on cassettes, but the few records that made it to vinyl, because this is the vinyl community, I'm after them avidly. Fadela. This is the track Nepki Wahadi. Sheba Fadela was one of the younger voices, the new generation in the early 80s of Rai. The most famous Rai singers are of course Sheb Khaled, later. Sheb means young Khaled. This is Sheba Fadela, which means young Fadela. There's also Sheb Mami, many others. But I thought, like, because it is you, Rob, of course we can't have an all-male entry. That would be a shame. That would really be a shame. Since Fadela is not a token Rai singer, she's one of the greatest ones. The groove in this is so unique. I love this. The next question will bring me a little bit more outside of the usual VC fare.
In my mind, that's yes.
A record that taught me something.
My hands start to caress you. Go from your shoulders to your waist. I kneel down to kiss you. That's right, you know the place. Your body starts.
This is Kelexi Shelby from Chicago.
So much pleasure, so much delight.
All for Lisa.
So swiftly I make no move.
On Transmat, Derek May's Detroit label, one of the absolute best Detroit techno labels. But this is Chicago House going Detroit. It doesn't mean anything anymore at that point. What has this record told me? This is from, I believe, 90... This is quite early 90s. If not even earlier. Before, like, I discovered this about 1998, I believe. And before that, most electronic music I was listening to, actually most music I was listening to was for this little part of yourself and for this. The heart and the mind. So it was all about emotion and intellect, which you could argue goes against each other, but not necessarily. But these were the driving forces that attracted me to music until I discovered Chicago House. Suddenly, before my heart received anything and my head received anything,
In my mind, that's yes.
shit, I'm moving. Hips and shoulders music.
Place. My hands start to caress you.
This music told me
Go from your shoulders to your
that the
waist.
body is musical. I'm really grateful for this. And I still listen to this. I've produced music that is
Your body starts to
quite
ignite.
akin to this,
So much pleasure, so much delight.
but I wouldn't want only this. I want it all.
Yeah, make me move.
But this really opened probably the last closed door for me within whatever music can do to make you grow. And there you go, the first 5 questions that Rob was asking that were related to you. Now up to the questions related to him. There's 5 more questions. The first one was about his favorite movie, which he owes the soundtrack of. And you'd have to name his favorite movie. Who knows? And his favorite soundtrack. He doesn't have that many soundtracks. But basically, yeah, name his favorite movie, which he owes the soundtrack to, and another movie soundtrack that he owes, which he doesn't own that many soundtracks. He gave us a clue though, that both these movies were released the year before he was born. When are you born, Rob? You look like a very nice White Walker. Ageless. You are Dublin Zombie King with a smile. It's impossible to put an age on you, but in a later question, you mentioned a record that made you want to take up the guitar, which was released in 1990. And oh no, you started to play the guitar in 1990, if I remember correctly, because of a record that you discovered in 1990. So I thought, like, when did I start to want to play an instrument? When did I start my own band? 16? Retroactively? Like 74. That would be pretty wrong. You have to go with what you have. So the year before 1973. Therefore, Rob, I believe that your favorite movie is Wicker Man. Yes. The soundtrack by what's his name again? Paul Giovanni. Yeah. At first, I thought maybe The Holy Mountain, the Alessandro Jodorowsky movie, but the soundtrack only got. It's Don Cherry. It's an amazing soundtrack, better than the movie actually, I believe. But it only got released like last year or 2 years ago. So I thought, like, maybe that's unlikely. I thought also maybe, who knows, The Exorcist, because it features Penderecki, Jack Nietzsche, Webern, the Tubular Bells, but no, The Wicker Man. It's closer to home. This beautiful pastoral folk, weird. The movie is great, and yeah, I'll go with that. And I will also say that the next soundtrack that you own, that is your favorite, would be La Planète Sauvage, the Forbidden Planet, or so, the French animated movie by Roger Lanoux, scripted, written by Roland Topor, my favorite surrealistic writer, and of course the beautiful soundtrack by Alain Goraguer. He's French, I should know how to pronounce it. But yeah, La Planète Sauvage and The Wicker Man. Which brings us to the next question. 2 records that you own that were released the month you were born. So 74. 1974, which month? I had to make a guess, a wild guess. You are a fall person, in my opinion. Maybe you also are a default person, maybe not. So we're in October now. You started this thread a couple of weeks before, in September, and I think that maybe that's why you chose that question. I wouldn't know the date, but let's say September 1974. And then I'll go with this. I think you own this. Toru Takemitsu, Corona. I'm sorry. Toru Takemitsu is a Japanese, obviously, modern classical composer. He's got many records on Victor, which is a Japanese label, quite a few on Deutsche Grammophon, and this one on Headline, which is a British label. It's a Decca sub-label, which means that it probably was available in the UK more than the other records from Toru Takemitsu. But I know that you talked about Toru Takemitsu quite a lot. I don't know if he would be one of the composers you own the most records of. This dude does. I got more than 20 LPs from Toru Takemitsu. But I thought you'd have this. If you have a few Toru Takemitsu records, that would be one of these. And I love it. And this was released in. I chose this because it was released in September 74. A record that was released, I don't know exactly when, because it's a major record. I know that in France it was released in September 74, so it maybe was released I don't know when it was released in the UK, but in France I know for sure it was released in 74 because I got this record from someone who bought it upon release, and he was working in a record shop. Rock Bottom from Robert Wyatt. What can I say? Robert Wyatt. If you don't have this, Rob, what is wrong with you? Of course you have this. I would be shocked if you didn't have. This is not the album, but like as a third bonus, just in case, this is Showroom Dummies from Trans-Europe Express Kraftwerk, which was released for sure in September 74. Now, the two composers that Rob owns the most, the largest amount of records, albums or records featuring them. Like, he wasn't clear on that, but like I thought so. So for me, it would be Toru Takemitsu and Olivier Messiaen. I own about like 20 records from him, and Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Now Stockhausen, I believe you have a lot of records from him. What you said though, that both composers you own the most records of, their last name start with the same letter. And I thought like, okay, so maybe Stockhausen, maybe Shostakovich, but if, I don't know, maybe there's so the obvious choices that maybe, I mean, look at your how you look at us. You're cheeky. You put some traps for us. So I will go with Bela Bartok. This is Nicolas Schoeffer's homage to Bela Bartok. But Bela Bartok, I believe that you got at least 20 albums from Bela Bartok. And B, I know you got this record, Pierre Boulez. Pierre Boulez has released tons of records, but also as a composer, but also as a director, a music director. conductor, sorry. And I would be surprised if you didn't own quite a lot of Boulez conducted records. So there you go, Pierre Boulez, Béla Bartók. That's my guess for you. Now, the question: which album made you want to take on the guitar? And the clue you gave was that after this question, the last question was that you played on the guitar 5 songs from the same artist. And when you ask which album, which band, which artist, I had no clue till I listened to the tracks. This is so weird. This is really weird because this is someone that I don't particularly love, but somehow when I started to buy records in '92, he had his first solo album, and I bought it because the press was saying it was good. I was still young, and I bought even his second one, both of which are featured in the 5 covers he did. So it is Paul Weller, and as his first solo record was in '92, obviously, and you mentioned 1990. It's either from the Jam or Style Council. I will guess that it is from the Jam, even if Style Council is more interesting to me personally. But I would say it's either Setting Suns or Sound Effects. I will go with Setting Suns because it's a little bit more rock and maybe easier for a 16-year-old to embrace. So there you go, Paul Weller. For me, as we're talking ourselves, I forgot to mention my favorite soundtrack, and I think it's around here. Is it here? Oh, it's not here. My favorite soundtrack is Clute by Michael Smalls, but I don't have that many soundtracks either. But Clute, the sex thriller with Donald Sutherland, was pretty great. Yeah, well, this is pretty good too. But no, it's Clute, and of course this. And yeah, well, this is pretty good too, Michel Polnareff, Lipstick. But the band guitarist that got me to start a band, well, I'll have you know that he's from Dublin. Yeah, I kid you not. It is Kevin Shields' little brother, Jimmy Shields, who had this band, Roller Skate Skinny. This is their first album, and I really love this. Okay, so the 5 songs that you covered. The first one was quite easy for me to guess because I have the record. It is Foot on the Mountain. The second one was a little bit. I had to think about, and yeah, it's the Jam, because it's one. The starting melody is very catchy, and it's one of the greatest videos. So it's English Rose. The third one was a little harder because it's an album I know but I don't own and I don't particularly like. But maybe in time, maybe you triggered me to want to listen to heavy soul a little bit more. The fourth one is yeah, the whole point of No Return, which is Style Council, the band Paul Weller had after the Jam, which was quite an odd not listen to the style concert. It's such a weird but gentle project, like really misunderstood before its time, or who knows, maybe it was just like an experiment that was relevant in its time and that now has lost a little bit of its groundbreaking foot. I don't know. And the last track, Above the Clouds, I recognize instantly because it's on one of the two first albums of Hallwell. The two I bought upon release and that I listened to, and it was a little bit tricky the way you played it, but I'm pretty sure it's above the clouds. So there you go, Rob. Congratulations on 500, and please keep on doing the channel. Don't go anywhere. I hope I will provide an interesting echo chamber with my own videos, and I hope I made this entry somewhat entertaining, interesting, because I have to apologize for how long it is. And on that note, let's listen to the end of the song from Rose Get Skinny, Bring On Stigmata. Oh, it is finished. Perfect.